Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, and everyone and everything in between. Welcome to episode 20, 29, I guess, on the Stay
horrible.
Positive podcast. God bless you, Pete. I'm Alex,
That was a cough.
joined by...
Well, you just said my name, so.
You could have changed your name within the last week.
My name's Alex.
It's Alex, the Alex and Alex show, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah. Hi.
Hi.
So, Alex.
Yes, Pete. Or Alex. Okay, we're ending that. Pete, what's up?
What do you think is the most interesting aspect of human nature?
The most interesting aspect of human nature. That's a hard question, Pete.
That is a hard question. I wanna delve into just a lot of things about human nature because we've mentioned it so many times before on the show, and I just feel like we only go into it maybe for a sentence or a quick 5-minute segment of just talking about tribalism or selfishness or all the things that make us us. But we haven't actually had a full-on conversation on what all this stuff means, why it occurs, and I just want to have a more expanded viewpoint and hear your takes. So, let's start off with what do you think is the most interesting aspect?
I mean, as it stands right now, to our knowledge, we're the smartest creatures on the planet, but even in that regard, I feel like we were just lucky, you know? Every animal, including ourselves, even today, our main goal is to survive and adapt to the conditions in order to survive. That's not limited to just humans. We just happen to be the best at it, I guess. But even that's potentially a stretch, because I didn't exist 4 billion years ago when a caveman discovered fire. What if lightning didn't strike that tree and he saw fire? What then? He would just be a hairy ape man throwing spears at dinosaurs, as it were, in the ancient times.
Well, I mean, I don't mean to correct you, but I will correct you. So, people weren't alive 4 billion years ago, and they definitely were not alive while dinosaurs were alive.
I know,
otherwise we definitely would have been extinct.
That's not true. We've survived other horrible things.
You think we could have lived through dinosaurs?
Yeah, we'll just live in like small caves that they can't reach us in. And maybe domesticate like the small ones.
Domesticate the small ones? What possible uses could we have for small dinosaurs? I'm actually no.
Hunting,
that's not a terrible idea.
You cretin. What do you think dogs are used for in ancient times?
Dogs are used to make people happy, man.
No, like in ancient times when we domesticated wolves, you know. I remember reading somewhere, and I don't know if this is 100% true, but the reason like wolves would like live near people is because when a person hunted something, they could get the food after they did whatever they did. So it was a win-win for them as well, because they're surviving with us, essentially. That's why they're man's best friend. We survive together.
Damn, that's so wholesome.
Maybe not for the creature we killed, but...
Well, no. I mean the story of man's best friend. But okay, so...
How old is people? When was the earliest man?
How old is people?
Yeah, the earliest man.
You'd have to really define what a human is. So technically, the oldest humanoid creature, species, thing was about 6 million years ago.
Only 6 million? When was the first Homo sapien, which is what we are right now?
First Homo sapien? The first Homo was discovered around almost 3 million years ago to the Homo line.
Homo what? Homo erectus?
Homo habilis.
Habilis. 3 million, okay.
Oh, wow. So, alright. So you asked when the first Homo sapien lived?
Yeah.
It says here, according to Vox, that this was about 200,000 years ago.
Wow, so we're not even 200,000 years old. Or we're not even 1,000,000 years old.
At least our species of humanoid people.
The best ones.
The best ones. So yeah, you could say that. But I mean, of things that possessed very similar characteristics, attributes, and intelligence to us, I mean, not really intelligence, but ability to make use of the resources they had present around them, you could say about 6 million years.
All right. We did a lot in those 6 million, 200 million, well, no, 200,000 years.
When you think about it, yeah, a lot of stuff has happened over 200,000 years. I mean, it's kind of natural for us to
a lot of stuff has happened just this year alone, let alone 200,000 years.
Yeah, 2020 had the capacity to extinguish the flame that is humanity, but I feel as though it only makes us stronger.
Humanity will never die.
That's a bold statement.
If humanity dies, it's because we did it, not because of anything else.
I really have to disagree with that. There are so
you
many
believe in the
external
Long
factors.
Island asteroids killing the world.
Look, man, it's not a terrible assumption to have, or it's also not outlandish at all. You'd be so surprised how many things there are in space that could kill us that we have no idea even exist.
Yeah, but the odds of them hitting us are close to zero, because space is pretty big.
Let's say we had an extremely huge solar storm, solar flare even. Coronal mass ejection, you know what those are?
All electricity dies?
Essentially. We're screwed. We're literally put in the dark ages for months, maybe years.
Yeah, but consider that it took us centuries to even get here. Fixing it within a matter of years is an inconvenience at best. And think of it like this, Pete. All the people who rely on social media, they'll probably,
They'll find new reliance.
Yeah, they'll maybe have to either sober up or get good or, cease to be.
Cease to be.
To put it politely.
Okay. Fair enough. So tell me now. Take me back to what it is that you answered.
Yeah, what's the most interesting thing about humanity? Are we the only species that kill each other?
No, of course not.
What other species goes out of their way to kill each other?
Well, to be honest, they don't go out of their way, but I mean, from what I've seen, thanks to the Discovery and Discovery Channel and Animal Planet, shouts out to when I was 11 years old and watching those. But basically, the only times you see creatures of the same species fighting is over mating opportunities.
Or food competition, probably.
Yeah, the two most important things to survival, really, for a species is mating and food. So, in that case, you would literally see a death match between two, I don't know, you could say walruses, elephant seals, birds. I don't think you would see wolves, because wolves are so pack-minded, very similar to us. That's like a chicken and egg thing I want to talk about as well, but we'll get there.
Okay. Even that, I'm thinking, why do people kill each other? It's well, let's think of, the reasons. Out of jealousy, which is probably relates also to, mating or food or wealth, as because we have money, whereas animals don't. So, what other reasons are there for killing each other? Killing each other for patriotism in war, but, that's a matter of pride. Your country is the best and that country is not, so let's stop them.
Yeah, it's such an interesting topic, because when you think about it traditionally, and if you think about it on a pure, I guess, the most pure standpoint, the only things of true value, at least when you factor in all other species, the only things of true value are mating opportunities and food.
Yeah.
Right? Nothing else really, really matters, because we're talking about the survival of our species. But nowadays, everything is so much more complex.
You say that, but all this electricity and all this stuff, what is it used for? The only thing that makes us probably slightly different is medicine. Animals don't have medicine, but medicine is used to, once again, help us with survival. So if animals could make medicine, they probably would do it. So quite frankly, everything about us has to do once again with the same things as wild animals. It's just surviving, food, and mating. Just to
Okay.
a ludicrous complex web, but the basics are the same.
Yeah, I just feel as though there are a lot more complex structures placed in society, to be fair.
Yeah,
And
but
most
like
of these are social,
it's just
which
a bunch.
allow for things to change.
Yeah, but that's just like a bunch of extra steps for the same thing. It's like you go to school. Why do you go to school? To learn stuff. Why do you learn stuff? To get a job. Why do you get a job? To make money. Why do you make money? So I can have a place to live, to buy medicine, to buy food, and maybe attract a mate. So all these extra steps basically led you to the same path as a wild animal hunting whatever they hunt. Just the just a much more roundabout way.
Look, I'm not disagreeing with you at all. It's just crazy to think about how all roads lead, or all roads basically converge to those aspects.
We are animals.
I know, it's just so crazy to think about that really everything we do, everything we are is still, it could still be so easily generalized to those things.
Can I ask you a very simple, not simple question?
Yeah.
What do you think the meaning of life is?
Oh my gosh.
I've
Ah.
come up with like multiple answers, but in the matter of this conversation, I feel the meaning for life, at least, yeah, no, the meaning of all life, animals, plants, anything, is to
Oh,
survive.
so you. Oh, okay. So you're not talking about you're talking about existence of any species. What's the meaning of it?
Yeah, like why do we exist?
Oh,
Well,
dude.
that's a very
Honestly,
that's a very philosophical question, obviously, and I've come up with several answers to that, including the very simple that life has no meaning, which I try to not believe in as much as I can. But I still consider it to be on the table. But as far as this conversation is concerned, I feel the meaning of all life is to keep our species alive, and that applies to literally every species.
yeah. I'm actually going to agree with that. There's no other way to explain it. I mean, if you're talking about everything and like anything right now, the only way that we can actually progress is if we survive. The only way that we're able to continue and innovate upon anything, just to make our lives easier, even, is to survive.
But not even that, because think about this. Think about this. For billions of years, life has existed, from single-celled organisms to giant, feathery animals we call dinosaurs. Why do they exist? Why do they keep existing? Why don't they just die off the first one? You know, it's not like they're thinking, "Oh, I need to keep the species alive." At least not like
They're not consciously thinking
thoughtfully.
it,
No,
yeah.
no, conscious probably, but they're not thoughtful. They don't have intricate thoughts to put it. It's just instinct. It's just nature. They want to survive, and they want to keep their species alive, whether they actually know it or not. Because if that wasn't the case, why do cells like do mitosis where they split? Why do
Yeah.
animals mate? Why do plants throw their seeds all around? All of this adaptability, all this I don't know what you call it, traits, I guess, for every living creature has been designed to survive. And who knows? Actually, here's a thought for you. Maybe these aren't the only creatures that lived, but these are the ones that adapted traits to continue living, so we know about them. Maybe there were creatures that came to existence and never had the instinct to mate. So they just died after their first run because they never made it because they never instinctually wanted to mate.
That is damn interesting. I mean, that's totally possible. But the problem is, well, how could a creature come into existence if it never mated?
Um,
How did it get there? That's a chicken and egg problem.
I mean that's the same thing. Like, how did we get there? Humans, not necessarily. I mean, maybe God made us.
There's
But,
no, but what I'm asking is we got here because of millions of years of reproduction and genetic mutation, essentially.
what's stopping mutation from making the electricity in your brains from? That's a mutation. That would be against.
I can't.
That would
tell
be
you.
against.
I don't know enough about.
No,
the
yeah,
subject,
but that would be
to
against
honest.
what we consider nature. But nature to a different creature or a creature like us that had a mutation in their brain some way, that we wouldn't understand them and they wouldn't understand us. But that's at least my ignorant mind, who never studied biology, that sounds possible. And it would make sense why they don't exist anymore because they didn't mate. They didn't feel it was needed to mate. And you know, it's honestly shocking that you came up with this topic today, because just the other day I was having this like thought of like, why do we eat food? No.
Crazy.
Think about this. Think about this. Why do we eat food? We eat food to live.
Yeah.
Because if we don't eat food and water for like a week, we die.
Yeah.
What if an animal didn't feel like? How did we discover that eating is good for us? Like, how do animals know what eating means? You know what I'm saying? Like, no one said, "Hey, that animal over there, you realize you need to like kill it and eat it if you want to keep living." No one told any animal that was the rules. So it like got me thinking about like Darwin, about how survival of the fittest, about how animals, they develop traits, and if those traits are beneficial to their environment and where they're located, then they survive. And if their traits don't fit that, then they die. And only the fittest survive. So what if it, like, you always believe in chaos and entropy and randomness. What if like all animals started off as just a bunch of like mutations, and some of them like thought about eating, and some of them didn't think about eating because they didn't think about it, because no one thinks about it. It's just nature. And some people's nature might lean one way and some might lean the other. And what if an animal didn't know they had to eat, and they just instinctually said, I'm not going to eat? They die. And only the ones that live survive. And those animals, their genes that gave them the nature to eat, transfer to their children. And their children, maybe one of their children has a mutation, and they die, but the rest of the children will continue with that instinct of eating. And that pattern will keep going and going and going for billions of years, leading to many different animals. But we all stem from that one animal that said eating was a good idea, genetically or instinctually, in their own brain pattern, their own way of nature. And the animals that didn't have that like instinct of like, I need to survive, they died. Because they died. That's, you need to eat to live, and they didn't think you need to eat. So only the ones that thought about eating live, so that's why we want to eat. And that's why everything wants to eat.
Damn. That's a really hot take, man. That's a really, really hot take.
I didn't exist 6 billion years ago. I didn't see the first vegan dinosaur. You know what I'm saying?
Vegan dinosaur. Well, the first signs of life
are single-celled organisms.
Occurred. Yes. So I mean, if you want a real answer to that question, you'd have to just evaluate which of those first single-celled organisms evolved the traits to survive, and of those survival traits, which of them involved eating, or at least consumption of energy to keep their life going on.
Yeah, but theoretically speaking, if that first cell never had that instinct to eat or reproduce, nothing on life existed.
Yeah.
And that kind of speaks a lot when, as far as we're concerned, every planet around us doesn't have life. So I guess, like I said in the first sentence, we were just kind of lucky, I guess.
Oh my god. That's so true. We are beyond lucky. You kidding me? The odds of us existing as a species so low. I mean, look at it right now, at the way we are. A lot of scientists make so many arguments as to why there should be extraterrestrial life out there, And I mean, while I'm in that camp, it's so hard to find them because even the slightest genetic mutation the slightest genetic mutation in your instinct to survive, for instance, that literally means life or death. So I remember, I don't know if I ever told you this, but I like listening to Neil deGrasse Tyson and his kind of arguments for human intelligence. And one thing he would always say is, let's look at a chimpanzee and a human being, and let's look at their genetic makeup. A chimpanzee is 2% different from human beings, right? So chimpanzees, we look at them and we're amazed when they can put blocks together and make drawings and try to communicate with us because they're chimpanzees, right? Meanwhile, our toddlers are doing that same stuff, Easy.
Yeah, but there
One,
are
two, three.
children, whereas these chimpanzees are quote-unquote 2% less developed than we are. And that 2% makes all the difference in the world.
Yeah, exactly. So now if we go 2% in the opposite direction, so from chimpanzees to humans, let's go humans to next species, whatever. I mean, doing calculus as toddlers or figuring out the theory of relativity, Einstein's equations before middle school type of thing. That type of species would literally enslave us so easily. But it gets you thinking about what other factors there are that can affect survival. So for instance, just raw intelligence, obviously, I think is a huge aspect. I mean, if you're not able to overcomplicate kind of the ways that we exist, then that means almost in a way that there's just not a lot of raw intelligence behind your species. Because all these other species, and you kind of said this before, they only live to eat and mate. Like, they live in dens or they live in caves, and they don't have very complicated lives, right? But us as human beings, you said before, we have like an interwoven, just complete web. Everything is so intermixed and complex for the same reasons.
Same goals, yeah.
The same end goals, the same end game. So I would see that as more a sign of intelligence rather than circumstance. And so
what if that intelligence was circumstantial, though?
Jeez.
This is the mind-blowing episode.
Oh my god. That wow, you just
No, because like there are birds.
You're right too.
There are birds and there are squids and there are like blue whales and they're pretty smart for what they are.
Dolphins, yeah.
But they're not as smart as us. But that's just relative because we're not aquatic, or we don't fly. We have hands. What if birds had hands? What would happen then? They'd be the superior race. They'd be the master race.
Are you just saying opposable thumbs is the reason that we're so freaking successful?
I mean, we can hold stuff with ease. That's a pretty good trait to have.
Adaptability.
And that was just by coincidence. Since every other animal minus monkeys and apes don't have that trait.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
I'm trying to think of other animals that actually have opposable thumbs, but I can't. I feel as though there should be, because there are so many animals, but
it really shows that we just rolled the lottery when it came to the mutations of the animals.
Yeah. The money ball struck perfectly.
For us, yeah.
It did.
You said you were talking about Einstein's relativity. I want to have a small tangent right now.
Go for it.
Tell me if this sounds familiar. You said that we had like physics. We have like Newton's and Einstein's like formulas on Earth.
Yeah. Yeah.
But you said when you take it on a much bigger scale, those formulas stop working, like in space.
Yeah.
And that made me think for like a bit of time. How do we know if we're actually right with those formulas? What if no, hear me out. If I told you 2 + 2 is 4, you'd say yes, of course.
Mm-hmm.
What if 2 + 2 was actually like 4.000001? But the difference is so small, you don't care because like, oh
Negligible,
well,
yeah.
it's close enough. So what if all of our formulas in physics are actually not the truth, but the difference of what the truth is and what we're using right now is so small for our scale and our purposes that you can neglect it. And that's why our formulas don't work in space, is because on a bigger scale the true formula isn't what we've come up with.
Well, let me address your first part. So the stuff that doesn't work on a very big scale or very small scale are Newton's laws. So those things apply to essentially everyday life, and they still work for a lot of cases, but not all. I'd say about 80% of cases, or 70% of cases that exist, can be described by Newton's laws. The rest has to be described by quantum mechanics and relativity. So an example would be the behavior of subatomic particles, very simply. Like, remember when we talked about quantum entanglement, quantum teleportation, superposition, things like that? You just can't use Newton's laws. It's impossible. Let's say the behavior of celestial bodies, so planets, stars, galaxies even. That stuff, you just can't use Newton's laws. It doesn't make sense at that scale. It's too big.
Do we have laws for those yet, or not really?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Then I'm just spewing nonsense.
No, you're not. I actually let me let you in on a secret. I actually have that kind of philosophy to science. Because the thing with science is, and the thing with intelligence and learning and knowledge, if you assume that we already know everything and we've explained everything there is to be, then you are doomed to live your life in the wrong type of ignorance. You know what I'm saying?
Ignorance is bliss, Pete. That's what they all say.
Well, yeah, but when you accept ignorance as a catalyst towards your improvement and your gain of knowledge and just your ability to kind of explain things better, then, that's the right way to do it. But ignorance by denial of fact, that's the wrong way to do it. And it's a pure fact that, at least to me, it is a fact that we've not explained everything the way that it is to be explained. There's so much missing. And I actually believe that in some way, shape, or form, all the physical manifestations of our reality and everything that exists the way it is right now definitely is wrong. There has to be something more, and there's definitely something more, in my opinion. But I don't know how to explain it, so I can't do that for you.
Do you want to tell 90% of Twitter that?
I mean, I could, but I do have a Twitter, but I don't use my Twitter. I use my Twitter to follow certain trends, not social trends, but
Twitter's not the place
the
for intellectual conversation.
Yeah, so I like that you brought that up, because I really don't think that things are the way they should be right now. I think that there's more, and we just haven't discovered it, and I don't think we will discover it in my lifetime. If we do discover more in our lifetimes, that'd be amazing. That'd be so cool. But I don't think it'll happen. Have you heard of the Kardashev scale for human?
No.
Human, we'll say, improvement. Not improvement. It's human
Evolution?
survival. Evolution. There we go. It's basically making human civilization into a four stage process. So the first stage is and it's also measured by how much energy you can consume as a species. You catch me? So the first stage, which we haven't even gotten there yet, mind you.
What?
Yeah. We're at 0.79 or 0.8.
Based off of this arbitrary scale he made?
Yes. So this scale, at the first stage, you are able to utilize to the fullest extent all the energy that your planet can provide to you. So that would mean that we can do everything that the Earth gives us. And like I said, we're not even there yet. The next thing would be to utilize. So stage 2 is to utilize all the energy that the sun gives you, right?
Right.
So that would mean like building a Dyson sphere or some type of enormous energy
Solar
harvesting
panel.
machine. Or a solar panel.
Isn't that what it takes the sun's energy?
Yeah, but that's trivial compared to the possibilities that we could develop in thousands of years. So that's stage 2. Stage 3 is your galaxy. Stage 4 is
We're not gonna do that.
I mean, listen, man, it's a scale. It's only meant to explain like the possibilities of evolution. And so yeah,
and what's the fourth step?
4th is universe.
Yeah,
But
okay, good luck with that, kid.
that you see, that's what I don't like about it either. It's the universe is expanding faster than the speed of light, and we don't know where it ends. So the fact that you could even fathom trying to harvest all the energy of the universe, I mean, there are just so many. There's such a rabbit hole we could go there, and I don't even want to go there right now. It just hurts my brain, and it hurts my spirituality. But okay, so I have another question from you, because we really went deep into the science roots, but I want to talk about the other aspects.
Okay.
So the things that really describe us as a species, they're steeped into 3 things, and I mean, biology is a little more kind
technical,
of specific. It's more specific on the science, in the science realm, and technically, when you think about it, psychology is a science. It's a social science, but I like to think of it in a different light than I like to think of biology, physics, chemistry, all those things. So we talked about that. The other aspects of humanity, philosophy and psychology. What parts do you think play a huge role, I guess, in where we are today and where we're going? It's a hard one. It's a hard question. Because when you think about it, before you go, I just want to kind of like spur on your thoughts. Basically, I mean, psychology, we just study our behavior. You know, like it's all like, why do we do all this stuff? And it can be boiled back to the same origin statements, food and mating. Philosophy, on the other hand, I don't think the answer is as clear cut. But give me your thoughts.
I mean, philosophy nowadays seems not particularly... It's not that it's not useful, but nobody cares enough to make it useful.
Yeah, that's a sad thing too that I've noticed.
Like, philosophy is just the conversation of thought itself. At least that's how I see it. You take a topic and talk about it. You and I talk about it, someone else can talk about it, and we can all have our own conclusions, and we can bounce off each other's beliefs. We can try to prove or disprove using logic and reason. There are a lot of things like, religion, we can't prove, but we also can't disprove it, so those exist. There are things we don't know, but we also don't know that we don't know, so we just think, so we think.
You don't know what you don't know.
So we
I
just
remember
think.
saying that to you.
So we just
right.
think and think and think, and we talk and we talk and we talk, and we come to our own conclusions. Nowadays, people prefer to just jump on. It's honestly like just mob mentality. People just prefer to join, quote unquote, the winning side because there's some sort of instinct of survival. But the stupid thing is that they're not really surviving anything. I guess their belief is what's surviving, and maybe that's an outcome of lack of problems. Many people have told me that, and I think we've mentioned it once or twice, that people without problems start making up problems because they need something to do, they need something to fight. And maybe that's instinctual. Before thousands of years ago, we were chasing animals. Not even thousands of years ago, Native Americans or not like hundreds of thousands, but just mere thousands of years ago, there were tribes where the only thing you worried about was catching animals. And that was it.
True.
Now you don't need to worry about that, but you still have that instinct of survival. So people are now competing on whose thought is the surviving one, which is petty. And you asked about psychology. I think maybe this has to do with one's ego, their belief that what they perceive. I forgot all the psychology terms and what they all mean: ego, id, superego, all that good stuff. I forgot what all of it means, but
That's Freudian psychology. I mean, there are so many different explanations. You can look at Nietzsche also. I mean, I like
Nietzsche
Nietzsche.
was more philosophical than psychological.
Yeah, but a lot of his philosophical ideals, they kind of stemmed based on human behavior.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, if people just philosophy should not be a selfish thing, and people have taken it to be a selfish thing where your belief must reign supreme. But that's not the nature of true philosophy. Philosophy is about just thinking and having thought. I think, therefore I am. That is what it is to be human.
This might seem like a very egregious generalization, but when I look at philosophy, I think of it as just a conversation on existence.
Yeah, it's to understand things. Everything.
You know, to me, it doesn't seem like anything more than really just that. You know, if you could boil down the three topics that I guess really sum up human behavior, which is, I mean, science, philosophy, psychology. You could say that philosophy is the why, science is the how, and then, I mean, psychology is the what, in a way, because it involves what we do. I mean, like how and why we do it, but it is what we do.
I think all three of them are just different versions of why.
Why do you say that?
Well, biology is why are we the way we are based on everything that built up to this point. Philosophy only existed when we had thought, and it basically tries to explain everything, explain life, explain death, explain human behavior. And psychology is more of a literal study of, like, analyzing people as a whole, like lab rats, and seeing what they do. Psychology is less about talking things through and more about observing them and coming to conclusions based on those observations. But all three of them are basically trying to achieve the same thing of why do we do what we do.
I mean, yeah. Shining under a different light, that makes sense as well. So
look,
then
no. This was a perfect example. You said something, I disagreed, I said my thing. That's philosophy, right there. That's it. That's all it is.
And thus belief systems are created. No, you're totally right. Then I have a question for you as well. Do you see philosophy and philosophical questions as a catalyst to our evolution, or do you see it as more of just accessory?
I feel curiosity is more of the catalyst towards our expansion and evolution when it comes to technology and improving our lives. And curiosity leads to both philosophy and technological advancements. People like Kepler and Newton were philosophers and scientists, because in those times, there was a period in Europe called the Enlightenment where people just started asking questions. Like during the 1500s, 1600s, or honestly from 0 AD to like 1500, 1600, 1700 AD, their religion was very, very, very important. And then there came a period where people just started asking questions about life itself. And there was a transition between being religious versus being secular and scientific. And Newton and many other scientists at the time were still religious. You know, Newton had the grandfather clock paradox, the grandfather clock belief. You know what that is?
No, I don't.
It says that the world functions on its own, but God got the world started. Because there was the belief of how did the universe start? Well, and science is clearly disproving that God made everything. But the grandfather clock says, well, God created everything but just left us alone after that. He doesn't have intervention in what we do now. He just got us started.
Mm-hmm.
or something along those lines. It basically is a loophole on, yeah, I believe in religion, but also science is a thing. Deal with it. And I really like that belief because it gives me an excuse to have faith. I like to have faith, without
No,
it,
of
life
course.
gets a little dark, if it
No, of
isn't
course.
already. You also bring up stimulation theory, and the more I think about it, I'm just like, how would I know? And if I did,
You
what would I
wouldn't.
do about it?
You wouldn't, then you can't do anything.
But I think that
Unless you try to find a way to break out of it.
that I don't think is that's basically like asking a video game character to break out of the video game. That seems very not realistic. Of course, if we were a
Yeah.
giant simulation, that would be really sophisticated and I wouldn't know where to start. But that's less important. And if I was a simulation, I think the main thing I want to know is, will I be rebooted should I die? Like, who is the person on the other side of the screen who started this simulation, and what value am I to them? Am I just an NPC? You know what an NPC is in a video game?
Empty C? No.
NPC.
Oh, NPC? No.
Not playable character. So any character that's not the main character or the antagonist.
Okay.
Like, would I just be one of those to whoever is the simulator's starter?
Oh, jeez.
Would I be? Am I the protagonist? Are you the protagonist? Are we all each other's antagonists? Who knows? And what's more, if we are a simulation, who's to say that whoever is the simulator, whoever's the guy who started this, who's to say there isn't a guy sitting next to him with his own simulation? Who's to say all of our simulations are all parallel universes, and that's what it is to be parallel universes, just to have one guy with a simulation and then another guy with a simulation, the guy being what we would consider a god. Who's to say that this god maybe has intervention, maybe he does stuff, maybe every disaster we see is his doing, maybe it's just a random generator and things just happen and he's just observing us, maybe we're a lab rat being watched by a bunch of god scientists. Who knows? I don't, but nobody does.
It's such an inexplicable situation, to put it mildly.
I read somewhere, the universe has to be one of two things. It has to be infinite or finite. But if it's finite, that means there's an edge. And if there's an edge, what's on the other side of the edge?
As it stands right now, it is infinite. But then if it's
but we
infinite,
don't know that.
Well, no, we have the ability to assume it based on the way that it expands.
But how do we know it's just too big for us to see the edge?
Well, we know that it's still expanding.
But what I'm saying is, if you can't see the edge, maybe it's just really far away, and we're expanding, like you say, but it could just be that we're too far away to see the edge of the thing. So maybe all the planetary objects will just hit a wall at some point or fall off an edge.
Right, but you're assuming that it has finite nature despite its infinite kind of behavior right now. Well, what I'm assuming is infinity.
But you don't know that. That's the thing.
Well, yeah, of course.
Who's to say God isn't just vacuuming the edge of his carpet and it's just sucking up the galaxies and planetary orbits, and that's what we consider expanding?
Well,
you don't know that.
Of course, I know. You don't know if it's finite either. This is stuff that I really do want to talk about eventually. Not yet. I feel like we need to have really deep conversations about this stuff, unless it bothers you. I feel like you seem a little perturbed right now. If this is the stuff that you were talking about, then maybe we don't have to.
I'm the one talking. Why would you say I'm perturbed?
You seem either you're perturbed or you're like really deep in thought during this conversation.
What does perturb mean?
Almost
that
bothered.
Sounds like bothered.
Yeah.
I'm not bothered.
No?
But I don't know the truth.
Yeah.
And nobody does. And that's something, as it stands right now, you have to accept or to challenge. And I don't know which one is the right one.
Actually, that's funny because that kind of goes into it a little bit ties into the next thing I wanted to ask you. So, whether or not we can accept how things are, we still find a way to keep chugging along, right? We don't need to necessarily accept or not accept the way things are and the way things could be and the way things were. But regardless, we still make things happen, right? Because it's the only way for us to actually do stuff.
We got nothing better to do.
Right? Yeah, I'm oversimplifying it so much, but that is basically what it is. So, with that in mind now, are we as a species, I have my thoughts as well, but are we as a species better at creating or destroying? Take a second, because when I thought about this question, I was like, whew, I was like, shit. What do you make of that from all the things we have both destroyed and created?
I feel that question will only be found out at the end of humanity.
Right? That's what I feel, and that's almost a one-way ticket towards the simulation argument.
Because it is true we have destroyed much, but in its absence we have created even more.
Right?
So at the end of the line, it's what finishes at the end.
Yes, exactly.
Do we end off with a creation or destruction? Or maybe we are gods of our own destruction. We are the creators of destruction itself.
Yeah.
We build something only to destroy it. Maybe that's what we are. Maybe that's our purpose. Maybe that's life's purpose.
Relax. That's a scary thought. That's a really, really scary thought. Because we do it.
If something is built up, what's stopping us from just deciding to knock it down and start over?
Oh, no. Absolutely nothing. Absolutely nothing. I totally agree with you. I think that as it stands right now, if we were to look at humanity as a graph that asymptotically approaches an axis, right now we're at the stage, if you were to take just a point on this graph, we're at the point right now where we are creating more than we're destroying because we're here. You know, we're still here.
You say that, but humanity has survived for thousands of years, which means we objectively had to create, with regards to birth, we had to give more birth than death.
Yeah.
Because if not, we would die.
So, yeah, at the current stage we are in, it's
Creators.
irrefutable. It's irrefutable that we're creators. But what bothers me about the question as well is, when you think about it, is it really contingent on just the end game? You know, let's say, quote unquote, the end of humanity scenario that you just talked about. Whether we are creators or destroyers, all the way at the end, I still kind of like what you said about, you know, it totally is contingent on the fact of what happens at the end. But then what happens with all the millions and billions of years prior to that one end instant? Are those things just completely, you know, I can't think of words.
Pete, if you run a race, which is the thing you value the most? The running to the finish line or the crossing of the finish line?
Well, it depends.
Was the crossing of was the running up to the finish line all for nothing if it was only the crossing that mattered the most to you?
Well, that's different than this situation though.
Is it?
Yeah, because we're not necessarily trying to make it anywhere. We're just trying to continue on. Because like I said, remember, from a scientific standpoint, our purpose of living is survival.
Yeah.
So there's no real... we don't want a finish line, if anything.
No, that's true, but you're asking, what are we, creators or destroyers? Until our end, there is no answer. There can't be. Because it's like, as ridiculous as it is, it's like a college assignment, you know? You can submit it, you could submit it half finished now, but that's not really going to be judged correctly for what it's worth. If you want something judged properly, you have to see it to the end. And if it's not, then it's incomplete and it's not ready for judgment.
I don't know. There's something about that just rubs me wrong. Because, like, I mean, I can rephrase what I said, but it's just overkill. I I just like to think that there is some type of value in what gets you there to that quote
Yes, of
unquote finish
course.
line.
But the idea is we never get there. We just keep going. That's the ideal scenario.
I mean, yeah, if you're talking about a purely survival standpoint.
If that's the case, if we never die, at least not from our own hand, then we are creators. Because we have created our own life. We've created our existence. We've created our meaning. So we are creators. But if should we ever reach an end that is of our own folly, we are naturally destroyers.
Inexplicably destroyers. Yeah, I mean, it doesn't.
There's your answer. There's your answer. If we never reach the end, we are creators, and if we do, we are destroyers. That's
But
the answer.
what about the question of this? Like I said, because what you're saying doesn't take into account all the stuff before. What happens if we die by our own hand, but it was something that we created?
Like what? A robot?
I mean, it can be anything. A super bug.
Coronavirus too?
Anything, man. Something that we created that killed us. You said that technically that falls under the category of by our own hand. So does that truly make us destroyers? We created
the question is what caused
case.
our destruction, does it go away when we're gone, or does it live on after us? That's the question. If the answer is it survives without us, then that means we are our own gods.
Then we are creators.
We are gods in our
We
own
created
right.
our destruction. That is crazy.
Of course, if it's a virus that needs us to live and we all die and it dies with us, then of course we're destroyers because we created something that can't live without us that was designed to destroy us. So in that instance, we would obviously be undoubtedly destroyers, but should the creature or whatever it is we create live on in our absence, we created something.
Oh my gosh, man.
And as long as it lives on, we are creators. And until
what a freaking rabbit hole.
And a trillion years from now, when our creation creates its own thing that leads to its demise, then it's a creator. And so on and so forth. Maybe that's what God is. It's just a human who made something.
Maybe. Do you have any way to know?
No one does. If
Nope.
if we created something and went extinct right after, how would that thing know we exist? How would that thing know what we are? It wouldn't. It would grow sentience in like 1,000,000 years and then say how, and then ask the same questions we're asking. Where did we come from? Why are we the way we are? And because all the humans are gone, no one will be able to answer that. So they have to have podcast episodes to discuss it. If destiny was real, would we be able to know about it?
I mean...
And if we did, would that be a part of our destiny? And everything we do with that knowledge, would that be a part of our destiny? Would that make it a hypocrisy? If I knew my destiny and I changed my route, is that considered destiny or me rewriting my destiny? Of course, none of this is real since there's no way I can know what my future is. But if I did, and I changed whatever one thing about it, did I rewrite history in the making?
That's an interesting question. You're following the same logic of the grandfather paradox. You know what that is, right?
Yeah, but that's more going backwards in time. This is me seeing my future.
Yeah, but they're both contingent on time.
Yeah, but the other one
progressing.
The one of them revolves around me going backwards. This doesn't revolve me going anywhere. This is just me in my current situation being told what my tomorrow is. And now I have to do something with that knowledge. Am I doomed to repeat it, what I've been told, or am I going to change it? Or is what I'm going to change it into going to lead? It's like the Macbeth, or is it Macbeth? Yeah, I think Macbeth is the one with the witches, where the witches told him what would happen if he died. What three things would have to happen in order for him to like be killed, and he didn't believe any of it. Like the three things were like something along the lines of the trees would move, someone would be born without a mother, and some third thing I forget. And he was
Mm-hmm.
like, none of that's real. That can't happen. And then something loosely related to all three happens, and he's like, oh shoot, I'm in trouble.
I'm a goner. I actually
Um,
remember that. I don't remember the three things, but I remember that distinctly.
so if he was never told those things, would he have been killed? And the answer is we don't know.
It's damn interesting. I mean, like the only way I can rationalize it, like I said, is using grandfather paradox. Just because you're thinking about stuff that's already happened and stuff that will happen as a result of the current timeline you're on. You could say destiny is the replacement for timeline here. The just the constant events happening one after the other. What do you think is the most terrifying aspect of our human nature? I asked you in the beginning what is the most interesting part, or yeah, but what is the most terrifying part to you?
The most terrifying part is how far we will go to feel comfortable, I guess. Because while that it goes both ways in that regard, we want the world to be a better place, but each of us have our own version of that better place. What
Mm-hmm.
happens if the wrong person is in charge of deciding what that better place is? And what if he or she amasses enough of a following to be able to enforce that version of a better place? Then what? It's quote unquote the right thing to do, but it's the right thing in the wrong person's eyes. So, what happens now? People like to think of pure evil as a monster, but the truth is, pure evil isn't a monster. It's someone who thinks they're doing a good thing when they're actually not. Because then they won't believe you. They'll see you as the villain, when in actuality, it's them themselves.
I mean, in reality, all of it is just a construct of our mind, right?
History is written by the winners, you know. We want to
Oh my
survive.
gosh, I cannot believe you just said that.
It's true. You know, Pete,
No, it's
listen to
just
me.
funny.
Listen to
I
me.
have my own personal things, but go on.
Listen to me. Do you know what Carthage is?
Yeah,
What's Carthage?
Carthage, the oh my god, I'm blanking. It was a city in Africa, correct?
It was like a northern African empire, yeah.
Yes.
And you know who the Roman Empire, you know what the
Yeah,
Roman Empire is.
yeah.
If you ask someone on the street, do you know what the Romans are and do you know where Carthaginians? What would you
Carthaginians, I believe.
Carthaginians? If you ask them which one do you know, who do you think the most ignorant people are going to recognize?
Of course.
Why?
Yeah.
But why? They both
Romans,
existed.
yeah.
They're both real. So why does only one resonate with the masses and the other one is not there? It's because one conquered the other.
Mm-hmm. It's just it's so blatantly true. How far will we go to be comfortable?
If there were two types of humans when the dawn of humanity started and one killed the other, would you know of currently right now would you know the existence of the second one? No, because he was killed. He or
Absolutely
she
not.
was killed.
Oh man, this is bringing us full circle. This is bringing us full circle to before.
Yeah,
What
you said, what
about
was it,
yeah,
Homo habilis? It's like, yeah, what if there was Homo otheris and he was killed? Then what?
other is.
I don't speak Latin. I don't know what
Oh
other
my
is.
god, that's hilarious.
But what if there was a second Homo whatever, along with Homo habilis, but Homo habilis was the superior one and killed the other? We don't know.
Hmm?
But we know what habilis was, but we don't know the other one. Why? Because one killed the other, one survived, one quote unquote won, and the other didn't. So I
Yeah.
guess I guess in the end of the day, that's what modern day winning is all about. It's about surviving.
Yeah, at the expense of other species, of course, but
No, but
surviving nonetheless.
think about this. Think about war. Think about sports. Think about everything. What does it all amount to? One beats the other.
Yeah.
That's the end goal. That's what we love. We love seeing competition. But why? Someone has to lose at the end of that, and we know full well someone has to lose at the end of that. But we're still going to the stadium and we're cheering and we're screaming. But at the end of the day, someone triumphs and the other one doesn't.
Yeah. I think you said it really well before, is that people need to create problems because otherwise there'd be nothing to do. And since we have no existential risk from other species on this planet, like, we don't have any true existential risk. We create that existential risk amongst ourselves.
Yeah, if you punch a bear in the face, don't be surprised what happens next.
All right, man, but it's not like there are there's not 7.5 billion bears out there like there are 7.5 billion humans, and those bears don't know how to operate tanks.
What if they're all underground, Pete, plotting revenge?
All right, man, if you want to dive down that one.
You don't know.
Like, the species under the sea also.
Pete, what if the Earth's core was actually a wormhole to the bear dimension, the bear tank dimension?
I hate you.
You don't know that. You weren't there. You've never been to the Earth's core. We're just thinking what it is. We've never been there, Pete. Anything's possible if you imagine it. Like you said, our imaginations might be finite, but what influences our imagination is infinite.
Yeah. Okay. Then with all that being said, can you
prepare for the bear apocalypse, as Pete would tell you?
No, not yet. I have one last question for you.
Oh, okay.
If you could think of a phrase or maybe a couple words to describe humanity, what would it be? I have my own.
Oh, I thought you were going to say something along our signature phrase. Okay, whatever.
Not yet.
Not yet. What are you, Mace Windu?
Almost there.
Okay. What did you say? Think of a phrase that resonates with humanity?
That if to sum up humanity or explain humanity.
Destroy, build, destroy.
Quite fatalistic. if you don't mind.
That was a TV show. That was a TV show where they would take like a pre-existing thing, destroy it, and then make something out of the wreckage, and then the winner, and then they compete against each other to see whose invention is the best, and then the loser gets their thing destroyed. Hence, destroy, build, destroy. And it sounds uncannily fitting for our conversation.
Uncannily fitting. Okay. If I had to sum it up, I would say the art of ignorance.
Ignorance in the making?
No. I mean just the art of ignorance. Just leave it at that. Do as much thinking as you want on it. Meditate on the phrase. Whatever you have to do.
So we are the masters of ignorance itself.
You can think that. Like I said, you can think about it however you want.
Well,
it's extremely open to interpretation.
That's very Socratic. Is that Socrates?
Very Socratic.
Is that how you say it? Socratic?
Socratic, yeah.
Socrates-like?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, because Socrates always said, "I know nothing except that I know nothing."
I mean, that's for starters.
I'm ignorant, but I know I'm ignorant.
I don't think it's a terrible way to live life.
But that's more peak humanity. That's not average humanity.
I mean, I appreciate the flattery, but I think that people that are able to realize that, and most people at one point in their lives they realize that, then that really just.
If only that were true.
No, I think it's true.
You think everyone figures that out?
I mean, okay, the people that don't have the ability to figure it out, they don't do it because of someone else's doing. Like, they are either killed or they're put in a position that they can't. But everybody that is willing to and able, I feel like everybody comes to that conclusion in one way, shape, or form.
Yeah, I mean, Pete, why should I think if someone tells me how to think? Thinking's overrated nowadays, Pete. Get with the times.
It's okay. It's okay. I still think that people think.
I like to. Yeah, that's a nice thought, Pete. I like to fantasize about that too.
Listen, man, I'm glass half full on people using their brains.
Hey,
Always.
man, whatever, how much we want to put in that glass, I'll drink it all the same. And with all that being said, glass half full, glass half empty, simulation, existentialism, Socrates, whatever you want to call it, no matter what life throws at you or doesn't throw at you, there are only two things you gotta remember. What are those two things, Pete?
Stay positive.